Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another EFMP Stories. I'm Jen Barnhill. I am the COO of Partners in Promise. And today I'm joined by Barb, and I'm going to totally botch her name because it's a fun one, but we're going to try. Koumjian. Yes, I got it right. Oh my goodness. So Barb is joining us today as one of our resource partners. She is currently the Assistant Director of the Military Parent Technical Assistance Center, and she is going to really give us some resources for parents so that we understand, first of all, what that is, what the organization does, and where we can go to find some answers to questions. As we always know that there's always tons of information out there with the military, and we really just want to kind of hone in.
Yeah, what is the military?
Yeah, what is it? What is it?
What a mouthful. It's actually a project. It's a U.S. government funded project. It was funded by the Office of Special Education Programs at the U.S. Department of Education. And its purpose is to help organizations called parent centers help military families when their child or children have disabilities. So EFMP families for the most part, okay? And so you say, okay, so we help parent centers. What the heck is a parent center? It's kind of a generic sounding term. Parent centers exist because of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. It's the same law that provides for your child to have a free and appropriate public education, okay? And that law also established organizations across the country called parent centers because Congress actually includes a few parents, and they realized that parents might need assistance understanding and using IDEA to get their child that free and appropriate public education. So the mission of the Parent Center is to work with parents of children with disabilities from ages birth to 26 and to help them participate effectively in their child's education and development. And to that end, parent centers have a ton of resources that range from group trainings to individual one-on-one help to by phone assistance. They partner with other organizations that serve individuals with disabilities. So they do all this under a mandate from the U.S. Department of Education. And they serve civilian and military families alike.
So because of that, and anytime we hear mandated program and it's available to everyone, my first question is, what is that going to look like for a military family where we have a very unique lifestyle? It's a little bit different for us. Is that something that military families can plug into something specific resources, or do they have a point of contact that they can reach out to at these centers?
That's a really good point. Okay, so just backing up a little, our program, the program I work with, the long term, has been working for 6 years to bring parent centers up to speed on the needs and concerns that military families have in general, and also specifically when they PCS from one state to another, okay? So we've worked really hard, and I can say that to a really large extent, we've been successful. We've also been able to successfully educate folks at military at a high level, like the Office of Special Needs, the department that runs the EFMP program. We've been able to clue them in about parent centers. My goal, my personal goal, and also the program mission is to get everybody connected, okay? Because there are certain programs on the military side that you need your EFMP system navigator or family support to. And you have all these civilian resources out there, and parent centers are like a one-stop center for civilian side resources in every state. Now let me explain how that is. They're a network. There's at least one parent center for every single state. Many, many states have multiple parent centers, especially if the state is densely populated or if it's just geographically large. And so later I'm going to share a tool for military families to find the centers, but essentially wherever you land in the 50 states and in any of the US territories, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Guam, you will have a parent center, okay? And you have it, every service is free. The services are free, okay?
Awesome.
They're there to help you. And nowadays they have been tasked to all, pay attention to military families, okay? I mean, military families were actually covered in the Every Student Succeeds Act, the need for, and parent centers funding stream indicates that they're supposed to help military families. So they know about you guys. They may not be experts yet, but they're getting there.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what our job is at Partners in Promise, is also to help educate different communities, but we also need to plug into those communities. So when we're telling parents to plug into their parent centers, is there any specific guidance of what types? I mean, obviously it's a one-stop shop, but are there some common reasons that a parent might utilize a parent center? What is the most common reason would you think?
Well, the basic reason, considering that they're funded by the U.S. Department of Education and it's about IDEA, the basic reason is that your child who has a disability or special needs or is having you want things to go well with the school. That your child may have an IEP, they may have a 504 plan, they might have a medical plan or a behavioral plan, or they may have no plan at all and you want to get the child assessed, okay? And that's where the parent centers can step in, because that is what the funding is for. It is for you as a parent to get the information, the specifics, the support, even the training to be a good advocate for your child and to help you and your child advocate for their educational needs. And let me be really specific. Parent centers won't give you legal advice. There is a separate set of organizations that's funded to do just that, and their services are also free. But parent centers are specialists in their states, not only their state's educational systems, but their state's educational regulations regarding special education. And you can see how useful that is going to be for our EFMP families. They are the on-the-ground background experts. They have staff that do nothing at all but work with families directly. And staff might specialize in topic areas, and some parent centers have military family specialists. Yay!
Yay!
And some staff are more geographically located, and they are deep specialists in local school systems. So, wherever you land, you are going to find people that know the ground. That's it's supposed to work.
And is there ever any overlap when it comes to, so for military families who are familiar with EFMP coordinators or school liaison officers, is there kind of a kind of bleeding over at all, or is this something that's totally separate for families? Would they expect, if they want to go to their new location and they have a child who's in gen ed, and then they have a child who has an IEP, could they just go to the EFMP coordinator or go to the school liaison officer and they would refer you to a parent center? Is there any kind of partnership that exists, or is that something that we need to really tell families they need to go search out?
Well, basically because of a lot of work my organization has done, and also because of individual parent centers who are very, very aware of the military families in their states. Many parent centers now have official or semi-official collaborative relationships with both the EFMP offices and your school liaisons. And in those cases, you could start with your EFMP, and if they don't refer you to a parent center, you can always use the URL that I'm going to share at the end. And no worries, because it's not like they're competing. There is some overlap. School liaisons, of course, serve all military, families whose kids attend those schools, where the installation is located. Sometimes you might be dealing with a school liaison who's on a regional level as well, depending. But they're not necessarily specialists in special ed or even 504 plans or anything like that. Many EFNP offices have people that are really well versed in special education. Others do not. It's not a requirement for the job, okay? Many of them just do learn and they're very good at it, but it's not an immersion, and it's not the only thing they're supposed to be doing. So the people who work inside the parent centers, those individuals, that's all they do. They deal with school issues and things that move because of school issues, like your child transitioning out of high school. Well, that falls under the parent center too. So they're complementary. Some of the topics overlap. In a great many states, I can say we've made real progress, and there are solid relationships between the installation staff in the parent-facing roles and the parent centers. So,
okay. Well, that makes sense. I think when it comes to how information is presented to our families when they move to a new location, we want it to come from one source, but it's often not coming from one source. So it sounds like parent centers really do provide that training and specialized resource. And how would someone go about getting that training, especially now during COVID? Does it look a little different? Is there any?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are no more in-seat trainings. Every single parent center in the network has pivoted to online training, okay? Individual one-on-one assistance, you used to be able to go out to the local Starbucks and sit down over a coffee with your trainer and, chat like that. And now it's going to be on Zoom or by email or by phone. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hi there. And the online trainings are the same way. The only difference is you're not going to get handouts passed out in paper. You're going to get a PDF and you're going to have to read them like that. But services are continuing. What is different is that many parent centers are no longer in their main offices. And the contacts, it may sound a little distant. Leave your name and your number and your issue, and but that's because people are picking up their phone messages remotely. You're not going to get a desk receptionist saying, "Oh, I'll put you in touch with Maria." It's not working like that.
Maria has their 3 kids at home who are distance learning. Life is different now, and I think everyone understands that. Yeah, as long as the services are still being provided, it sounds like.
Absolutely, they're still being provided. Parent centers, there was about 2 months where we were all running around like the proverbial chickens without the heads. But things are, the whole of next year, nobody is planning in-seat instruction anymore. We're just saying parents, and the times have shifted. We're not offering, like chunks of your weekend. No, they're in the evening when you can get, hopefully.
Yeah. As far as other resources, I know that you had mentioned previously that parent centers can also help with PCSing. What does that look like?
Ooh, okay. So so we all know that sometimes you get your notification and you feel like you're moving tomorrow. And so the real advanced stuff may not happen, but it's very quick to look up a parent center on a website and call in and say, we're PCSing in, we think blah, blah, blah. And, just introduce yourselves and say, my particular concern with my child is, and give that information. And just, say that you're a military family so that they immediately have that heads up. You don't need to disclose any details, but saying, we're active duty or we're active reserve, or we're my husband's a new veteran and he just retired. Any of these can help the parent center give you the pertinent information. Lots of times there's absolutely no difference between the advice that given to a military family or a civilian family, but there are times when you are going to need, you're going to say, I'm going to be new to this state. What do I need to know about special ed or other education regulations in this state? Parents have gotten some nasty shocks when they show up and find out that their child is not eligible for supports and services or special ed, depending on the child's particular condition or diagnosis. So it is different from state to state. And if it's the first time a family has PCS, they may not even realize that. So that's why having experts that are oriented to the state and local levels is very, very useful.
Yeah.
So that's one way. And the other way is if you have a little bit more advance notice, or if you are actually trying to decide between one or more duty assignments, you can reach out to a parent center and sort of ask for, what are things I need to know about this school district? And the story I always share, because it's really not the kind of thing you would even think of in the context of, sort of social servicey kinds of things. Mm-hmm. But this one family had a choice between being based in Tennessee or Hawaii. And, of course, Hawaii, right? And they called ahead. They happened to know about parent centers, and they spoke with somebody out there at the parent center in Hawaii. And they were asking about their child whose issues were around asthma and severe pollen and plant allergies. And the parent center staff said, so many of the schools have extensive outside classroom, and the classrooms are actually pods, and your child has to go outside between classes, and they're going to be eating their lunch outside, and it's not just PE and recess. It's
makes Hawaii less appealing, I guess, if you could do something.
Well, the parent just thought about, their child, wheezing and hacking and maybe having a really bad asthma attack, and they ended up in the other state.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things that only local people know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that you would encounter that on a, Facebook group.
But once they were discussing what their child's needs were, the parent center staff was able to say, well, I know that school, and, who told me that story? It was one of the former EFMPs at So I didn't hear that from a parent center.
Wow. Well, I mean, you were mentioning how, they can kind of help give you advice, even if they don't necessarily know about the military world. But can these parent centers also speak to like DODEA schools or private or homeschooling situations? Like, is it only public schools that they kind of have their finger in, or is it kind of something that's larger?
Well, that is a really excellent question. And actually, people that come in new hires to the parent center world have to be told about this, because, and sadly, the answer is it depends on the state or the location. Now, like DODEA schools, if your DODEA school is in a U.S. territory or U.S. state, there will be a parent center to help you. So it's not a clear, it's not just like CONUS versus OCONUS. You'll have a parent center in Puerto Rico, or one you can contact in Guam. And you will have parent centers in where else? Kentucky and New York State and all the other places we have Dodea America's schools. But there are no parent centers in Europe or Southeast Asia, or, because, well, first of all, IDEA doesn't operate over there. Dodea does have its own special education system, and I actually know one of the people that works at the headquarters in Alexandria. They've been working very, very hard to make sure that IDEA is followed in Dodea schools. And so there is a system for those situations. But in terms of homeschooling or private schools, that is where we go back to the state laws and regulations. States have very individual and a variety of ways that they treat homeschooling and private schools. Some states require certain types of private schools to follow some of the provisions of IDEA, and you can get a plan, but it's not going to be an actual IEP. It's going to be something like that, but it might not have everything in it you want. Homeschooling depends, again, on state regulations about homeschooling. Many states will require you to have your child enrolled in a school, even if you're providing instruction at home. In those cases, yes, parent centers can help because IDEA applies. So you can speak to your school liaison or your EFMP or a parent center about the homeschooling and the private school situations, and they should be able to tell you based on the state regulations.
Gotcha. And so, I would be remiss to not mention, we're talking about homeschooling, of course. And so obviously right now, a lot of people are homeschooling, but in the non-traditional COVID sense. Are you encountering even just tons of volume because of that? Or parent centers, do you think, extra busy? I know that we are busy because we were hearing from families who are, trying to find resources and plug in. Is there anything any guidance that families can turn to, or services that you could provide that might assist families who are dealing with that kind of limbo situation right now?
I wish I could say that the centers all have magic bullets on their website that tell what to do because your child hasn't had ABA services in 6 months. And, the problems, every parent center staff person that I've talked to, and I talk to a great many of them on a monthly basis, we all get together and, share tips and vent. And everything I've heard is that everybody's got COVID-19 resources based on what's happening in the state on their website, usually right on the front landing page of that website. I know that the parent center that my program is based at are updating those like on an almost daily basis. And it's not just statistics. It's like, what are the governing things going on up at the state level? What is the state saying to schools about how it's safe to operate? Is it local where the school decides? Is it more of a state control thing where the state can mandate? In terms of being able to get resources for your child regarding extended school year or services to make up for what the child missed, those are going to be decided on an individual basis. And yes, the parent centers can help with that.
That's great.
Yes, they're getting a lot of calls and they're all the same thing. My child cannot, my child hasn't been getting any services and they're regressing like crazy. That's the mantra right now. And like I said, no magic bullet, but if you call a parent center, you will have, the resources, not only of the individual person who speaks to you, but all the people within that organization that might have ideas.
Yeah.
And parent centers, if your concern is, also about your child's ability to have social support or learn more about how to be a self-advocate, or your child is aging out of the school system and aging out of all kinds of benefits like TRICARE and stuff. What is my next step? Parent centers are also educated about those things.
Yeah, and so as far as aging out, is there age range parents can keep in mind for parent centers? Is there any guidance in that way?
Okay, well, education piece, because the funding comes because of this law, this IDEA. Parent centers officially, the parent education component, starts at birth and goes up to age 26, which follows the law. However, okay, I don't know of a parent center where that is the only set of services. They all have additional programs that serve adults. So even if your child is now legally an adult or beyond, there are still programs. They're just not funded in that particular way. They may be funded through an individual state or a different type of national organization. For example, lots of parent centers also house the Family to Family Health Information Services Center, which can help for all kinds of, and is especially useful if you're going to become a veteran family instead of an active duty family. Okay. And that serves people of all ages. Our program in Washington State is, we're part of a national lifespan coalition, which is services for respite care across all ages. So we have parent to parent, which isn't the same as the Military Child Education Coalition. This is the national organization that matches parents with other parents who mentor them for their child's particular situation.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Those are all programs, and like for example, the parent center I work out of has a couple of programs, what they call community inclusion programs. They do person-centered planning, which is like you sit down and you do this massive graphic thing about your life and the people you want in it and your goals, and it's very inspiring. They have a couple of different youth groups. They've got an autism group that meets, they meet virtually now, but they used to do all kinds of stuff in person, and they still, we're in a decent climate, so we can do a lot. They can do a lot of outside things, So there are all different kinds of programs that parent centers have.
And so how, you mentioned kind of in the beginning how you would tease how we can get connected to parent centers. So what is the best way for a parent to find, either where the parent center for where they are or where they're headed next? How would they go about doing that?
Okay, so parent center is a generic term, and the name parent center isn't always in the title of the organization. So there is like sort of one central organization that's part of the parent center network, and they have a little tool that lets you find a parent center, either the one that's in your state, or if there are multiple ones, which one is closest to your installation and can help you out, Nowadays, of course, driving to the office is not such a big thing, but in the future. So it's called Parent Center Hub. The word parent, the word center, and the word hub. ParentCenterHub.org. And then if you want a URL, you put a /org.
We'll put a link at the bottom of the video, so don't worry,
so
we'll get you.
ParentCenterHub.org, ParentCenterHub.org. It's almost as involved as Military Parent Technical Assistance Center, but it's easier.
Well, I think military families are experts in kind of like having to dig for the right website. So I think we will be able to provide them with the URL so that they can, do their search.
And there's really not much digging once you get the URL. It just opens up on a page and you click your state and there you are.
Yeah, well, that's great. It sounds like, you don't have to be experts in your child's new state. You can turn to these experts who can plug in, because as military community, we might be able to share our PCS stories with each other. We might be able to share stories of the location, but we are not always experts in the legal protections and things that are afforded to you in a new location. So this is a really wonderful resource for our families. Is there anything else that you would like to touch on, Barb, before we sign off? We've gotten into quite a few things.
A new tool that came out on Military One Source, EFMP and Me, actually directs military families to parent centers with a link.
Great.
And so if a parent has, you know, even if you might never consider using that resource, you can check it all out there. The program I work for, some of the people at the Office of Special Needs were on our advisory board, and we've tried to kind of work together, you know.
Yeah, that's great.
Get things going. So I was really glad to have this opportunity, because I know that Partners in Promise has been very good at getting the word out. I just got one of your newsletters in my box today. It's just, there's always something that you're offering up, and I just think it's wonderful. I'm very honored to work with you guys.
Well, thank you so much for joining this resource, EFMP Stories. We're really excited to get to share this wonderful benefit to our community. I hope everyone takes a look, and of course, post questions, and we will, you know, get you in touch with the right people to help get them answered. Thank you again, Barb, for joining us, and everyone be sure to go ahead and click on the link at the bottom of the video to find your local parent center. But thanks, everyone.